I find it astonishing that the Hunter Biden investigation, that there are absolutely no leaks, that there's nothing, leaked by the Department of Justice or any sources, anonymous sources, 3 people sources, but they can leak this that has really no substantial claims. It has no substantial evidence.
Doctors have noticed a rampant increase in patients reporting severe neck and upper back pain. This growing trend is likely caused by people spending more time in front of their screens in the past year. It's become common that even a new term was coined, quarantine neck. This is why I highly recommend Magic Hands. Magic Hands uses revolutionary technology that recreates the feeling of a lifelike massage in your own home and reverses the pain caused by quarantine neck. Magic Hands features specialized materials, adjustable wrist supports, and multiple color options. 4 deep kneading nodes designed to recreate a lifelike shiatsu massage, customizable massages to make every session unique, heat functionality, and breathable mesh covering. Get Magic Hands today by going to www.magichandmassage.com. That's magichandmassage.com, or visit the link below.
Muchachos y muchachas, this whole Matt Gaetz thing is just such a weird thing to understand. There's so many facets and there's so much vagueness and just some weird things going on both sides that, just has me a little bit taken back. So we're going to go through some of the details. Obviously, there are some very obvious details as far as corruption and what I believe in our government and the biasness of our media. So those things have very heavy presence and accounts when it comes to this story. But also there was a interview given by Tucker Carlson and some stuff of which I was like, okay, what movie am I watching here? So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So I'm going to start off with the thing that broke the story, and that's the New York Times. And let's go straight to the source and see what they are claiming has been accused of Matt Gaetz. And we'll go into some further details just to investigate, what information there actually is on this. So we start with the New York Times. This is the story that broke out overnight. Matt Gaetz is said to face Justice Department inquiry over sex with an underage girl. And this is what they claim. Representative Matt Gaetz, Republican of Florida and close ally to former President Donald J. Trump. So first of all, they're already trying to villainize him by pairing him and associating him with Donald Trump, which immediately already unravels some sort of bias, because we know these type of biases that exist with these mainstream media outlets, how much they don't like Donald Trump, and anybody associated with him is automatically villainized. So I just, that's already I don't know if it's a red flag or a ding or what, but it just shows me some sort of bias immediately. Is being investigated by the Justice Department over whether he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old and paid for her to travel with him, according to 3 people briefed on the matter. Okay, so this part. So he's being investigated by the Justice Department over whether, that is a big determinant, whether or not did he not have a sexual relationship with the 17-year-old girl, paid for her to travel with him. And then here's the big, this is the red flag here. According to 3 people briefed on the matter. So this is an anonymous source, in other words. We're given some sort of, this to me is as much as a fairy tale when we don't have official sources. 3 people that briefed this media outlet on the matter gives us nothing. Okay, this could be 3 gnomes in the front yard. You know what I mean? Like, this doesn't give us anything. So that's a red flag there. Investigators are examining whether Mr. Gaetz violated federal sex trafficking laws, the people said. So here's the thing. And you guys know that, like, my platforms are built on, talking a lot about sex trafficking, sexual exploitation. And there's no question, when it comes to sex trafficking minors, statutory rape, things of that matter, it's 100%, it's a cut and dry thing. It's like either it is sex trafficking or it's not. If there is any sort of sexual relationships with the child, that's it, cut dry. There's no whether or not he did or didn't. That, again, already implies some sort of funny story with what the New York Times is trying to portray here. So investigators are examining whether Mr. Gaetz violated federal sex trafficking laws, the People said. So again, is that word whether he did violate sex trafficking laws or didn't. So what, again, is the story? Like, is there a witness? Is there a victim out there claiming that this is so? This doesn't give us much more than it serves, it being that this is just vague information. A variety of federal statutes make it illegal to induce someone under 18 to travel over state lines to engage in sex in exchange for money or something of value. The Justice Department regularly prosecutes such cases, and offenders often receive severe sentences. Okay, so actually this is a part here that is again, very vague. This is just generic information. This is not saying that this is relative to Matt Gaetz or this is something that he can look forward to. This is just stating some generic information. Is it true that a variety of federal statutes make it illegal to induce someone under 18 to travel over state lines to engage in sex? Yes, that's sex trafficking. That is those are legal ramifications for sex trafficking a minor. Okay. So just stating generic information out in the blue like that without really giving any sort of connecting connotation to Matt Gaetz is another red flag in this article here. It's just generic information. That's just generic information. This information is given in sex trafficking articles, like when they're reporting on stings or arrests or anything like that. It's usually that part at the bottom that just sort of wraps up the entire article. Sometimes, a lot of times it'll state, especially if it's the rescue and recovery of sex trafficked children or minors, it'll state what type of operation it was part of, what sort of program that was part, the bigger program that it's part of, the law enforcement agencies that were involved in the rescue and recovery investigation, all that jazz. And then it does state some sort of, legal disclosures. Typically it happens towards the end of the article. So just having my eyes on these articles, just having my eyes on these type of sex trafficking articles quite often, it's just a funny way to place this information and imply that Matt Gaetz is any sort of implicated in these legal ramifications without actually connecting him. Here we go. Here it is. I was not clear how Mr. Gaetz met the girl believed to be 17 at the time. I was not clear how Mr. Gaetz met the girl believed to be 17 at the time of encounters about 2 years ago that investigators are scrutinizing, according to two people. The investigation was opened in the final month of the Trump administration under Attorney General William P. Barr. It's just very strange. The two people said, given Mr. Gaetz' national file, senior Justice Department officials in Washington, including some appointed by Mr. Trump, were notified of the investigation, the people said. Again, this is just reiterating that these are anonymous sources. This gives us nothing. The three people said the examination of Mr. Gaetz is part of a broader investigation into a political ally of his. A local official in Florida named Joel Greenberg, who was indicted last summer on an array of charges, including sex trafficking of a child and financially supporting people in exchange for sex, at least one of whom was an underage girl. So this says a lot. Now, I'm not sure, because this, again, all of this information is very vague. We don't know whether or not these sources are real. We don't know where these allegations are stemming from. We don't have a victim. We don't have specifics into the investigation. There's not really a lot of information. It's just very vague. So again, this is another associative tactic. And look, I don't know whether Gaetz is what he has anything to do with this. He could be guilty. This story could be true. It's just that this does not give us a lot of information. Instead, it gives us this sort of notion that he's associated with these type of things just by just injecting that type of information in this article. Okay. So, for instance, when one of those red flags, when they said that, these are the legal ramifications for sex trafficking a minor, that is true. But how is that associated with Matt Gaetz? How is what legal ramifications is he facing? Stemmed from what is the question. So, again, by them associating Matt Gaetz with Joel Greenberg, who was indicted and part of a sex trafficking scheme investigation, they're only injecting him without giving any sort of reason. There's no reason to inject him. And if there was, then why wasn't that information included? Again, we're looking for things like a victim has alleged that there were multiple witnesses, witness accounts, something corroborative. This offers nothing other than being guilty by association, which is what the New York Times, I believe, in my opinion, is trying to do. So Mr. Greenberg, bad guy, indicted on sex trafficking, not working. No charges have been brought against Mr. Gaetz. The extent of his criminal exposure is unclear. So again, what is the entire intention of this article when you have things that are just only loosely, non-remotely even associated, not even remotely associated with Matt Gaetz? So this alone just obliterates everything. No charges have been brought against Mr. Gaetz, and the extent of his criminal exposure is unclear. So Matt Gaetz, he had responded to these allegations, and this is what he had to say. I only know that it was to do with women, Matt Gaetz said. I have a suspicion that someone is trying to recategorize my generosity to ex-girlfriends as something more untoward. Mr. Gaetz called the investigation part of an elaborate scheme involving false sex allegations to extort him and his family for $25 million that began this month. He said that his father, Don Gaetz, had been cooperating with the FBI and wearing a wire after they were approached by people saying that they could make the investigation go away. Mr. Gaetz claimed that disclosure of the sex trafficking inquiry was intended to thwart an investigation into the extortion plot. In a second interview later Tuesday, the congressman said that he had no plans to resign his House seat and denied that he had a romantic relationship with minors. It is verifiably false that I have traveled with a 17-year-old woman, he said. Representatives for the Justice Department and the FBI declined to comment, as did the spokeswoman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Central Florida. And then the rest of the article just goes into this big spiel about how much of a conservative he is that is heavily associated with Trump. What does that have anything to do with the allegations that are being brought against him? We learned nothing in the first part of the article. Again, you can go on your own time, read the rest of the article if you want to. It's basically a big spiel about him, like him and his association with conservatism, Trump, MAGA, all that. So in another article by Axios, this one is actually interesting. So Matt Gaetz, again, just reiterating in this article, he's saying that, the people in the Department of Justice are trying, there are particular individuals or an individual trying to extort him and his family for money. So then it goes here. Here we go. We have been cooperating with federal authorities in this matter. This is what he had to say. We have been cooperating with federal authorities of this matter, and my father has even been wearing a wire at the FBI's direction to catch these criminals, he added. The planted leak to the New York Times tonight was intended to thwart that investigation. No part of the allegations against me are true, and the people pushing these lies are targets of the ongoing extortion investigation. I demand the DOJ immediately release the tapes made at their direction, which implicate their former colleague in crimes against me based on false allegations. So that is a very bold call. And it's a very bold call to make. I'll just say that, like, as an observation, that's a bold call to make to, hey, my dad wore a wire, you know, release the recordings. Let's hear for this, and let's wait for that. Let's wait for the DOJ to. I think that's a big indicator. If they, whether or not they release any sort of tapes or recordings, that's a huge indicator of where this investigation lies, or where the bias lies, rather. So Axios then states that Gaetz sent Axios screenshots of text messages, emails, and documents outlining the alleged extortion scheme, which he claimed was being run by a former DOJ employee. The Justice Department declined to comment. Founding Shaken Gaetz told Axios that for weeks, he and his father had been working with the FBI in the Northern District of Florida on the extortion case. Gaetz said his lawyers were informed by the Justice Department that I was not a target, but a subject of investigation regarding sexual conduct with women. Asked to what the charges could relate to, Gaetz said, I have definitely in my single days provided for women I've dated. You know, I paid for flights or for hotel rooms. I've been, generous as a partner. I think someone is trying to make that look criminal when it is not. Gaetz said he was absolutely confident none of the women were underage. Okay. So that part is important because, if there are text messages, emails, documents that could also support the defense of Matt Gaetz, I think that part should also be, and I don't know what the details of this investigation, I don't know if that can be done where they release those details, like text messages, screenshots, but that would be helpful, in assessing this at an observation standpoint. Although, it's like our society has made this whole, the court of public opinion is the tell law. And so, this whole notion of innocent until proven guilty is completely out the window, So this is such a doozy, I'm telling you. So then David McGee, who is the one who is accusing Matt Gaetz of this entire fiasco, he states that the FBI asked me to try and get that information for Matt and then indicated we would transfer money to David McGee. Don Gaetz said, okay, that's his father. That's Don Gaetz, Matt Gaetz' dad. McGee, who is now a private practice with a Pensacola, Florida-based law firm, did not respond to Politico to comment, but told the other media outlets that basically that this was absolutely what Matt Gaetz said was absolutely not true. So, again, just many other pieces backing Matt Gaetz, that his father backs his claims of an extortion plot. See, and here's so this is where this article actually contains the replies from McGee, the person who is allegedly extorting Matt Gaetz. It says, in an interview with the Daily Beast late Tuesday night, McGee said any reports of extortion involving him and his firm were completely and totally false. This is a blatant attempt to distract the fact that Matt Gaetz is apparently about to be indicted for sex trafficking underage girls, McGee said. Wow. This is a blatant, I'm going to read that again. This is what David McGee had to say, the person who Matt Gaetz is alleging is trying to extort him for money. This is a blatant attempt to distract from the fact that Matt Gaetz is apparently about to be indicted for sex trafficking underage girls. Again, look at the information we have in regards to all this. You know, it's not a lot of information. So the fact that they try to make this into like he's about to, this sounds a lot like the whole Russia hoax. You know, there's plenty of there's plenty of data. You know, all of it's going to come out, and not one thing came out of that whole investigation. So again, guilty by association. And then this becomes like a Teen Vogue, cosmopolitan magazine of some sort, this article here by the Daily Beast. It goes into his dating life, multiple women that he has dated in his earlier life. And there are no harrowing, incriminating details about that. Like they literally overview his dating life. Again, is this Cosmopolitan or is this Daily Beast? Oh, I guess it's Daily Beast. So this is the part that just got me like really weirded out, right? Because listen, this is just, look, he went on Tucker Carlson and, you know, he basically gave an overview of what I just told you, you know, that just kind of assessing through the New York Times article, no basis to their claims. But then he explains all of that on Tucker Carlson, probably the first half. And then it gets to this part that just gets really, really weird. And I got like taken back. I was like, okay, this part is just really weird. Listen to what he had to say to Tucker Carlson. This is just strange.
Are smeared to try to take them out of the conversation. I'm not the only person on screen right now who's been falsely accused of a terrible sex act. You were accused of something that you did not do, and so you know what this feels like. You know the pain it can bring to your family, and you know how it just puts people on defense when you're accused of something so salacious and awful. But it did not happen. It is not true. And the fact that it is the basis of this attempt to extort my family tells a lot. And if the FBI and Department of Justice will release the tapes that they are in possession of, the American people will see what is really going on.
You just referred to a mentally ill viewer who accused me of a sex crime 20 years ago.
I mean, that part was so weird. I can't wrap my head around why he would bring, I mean, yeah, 20 years ago, I suppose, but, you know, it's just, maybe Matt Gaetz just has a weird way of relaying his situation to Tucker Carlson or trying to find like a relational factor, but it just came off really weird, you know, like why even bring that up? But keep watching. It gets a little bit more interesting.
And of course, it was not true. I'd never met the person. But I do agree with you that being accused falsely is one of the worst things that can happen, and you do see it a lot. Let's go back to the investigation. You say that it was or is underway. There was an investigation. What is the basis of that investigation? What is the allegation? That's really not very clear from these news stories.
Yeah, again, I only know what I've read in the New York Times. I can say that actually you and I went to dinner about 2 years ago. Your wife was there, and I brought a friend of mine. You'll remember her. And she was actually threatened by the FBI, told that if she wouldn't cop to the fact that somehow I was involved in some pay-for-play scheme, that she could face trouble. And so I do believe involved in the FBI. I brought a friend that actually you and I only know what I've read in the New York Times. I can say that actually you and I went to dinner about 2 years ago. Your wife was there, and I brought a friend of mine. You'll remember her. And she was actually threatened by the FBI, told that if she wouldn't cop to the fact that somehow I was involved in some pay-for-play scheme, that she could face trouble. And so I do believe that there are people at the Department of Justice who are trying to smear me, providing for flights and hotel rooms for people that you're dating who are of legal age is not a crime. And I'm just troubled that the lack of any sort of legitimate investigation into me would then...
I think I see, okay, watching this I think this is like the third time I watched this. Okay, I think I understand what Matt Gaetz is trying to do here. So I think that because Tucker, it sounds like him and Tucker Carlson had like a social life, or like at least a social gathering at one point. And I think what Matt Gaetz is trying to do is he's trying to jog his memory. He's trying to jog Tucker Carlson's memory. Like, hey, remember that chick that I brought to your house that one time, or to dinner that one time? Yeah, that's the chick that they're trying to also, implicate in this whole thing. Maybe that the chick is of age, and both of them, I think that's why he alluded to Tucker Carlson, that he would remember her. But I think it does come off a little weird, but I think that in a way he's trying to get Tucker Carlson to like jog his memory on one of the girls that is being approached in this investigation. And he probably knows that she is of age. And so I think it's just a weird way to do this, like on air, like it just looks weird, but I suspect that's what he was trying to do. But again, it's just like, Matt Gaetz just put it in a weird way. It sounds and looks awkward.
Permute would then convert into this extortion attempt.
I don't remember the woman you're speaking of or the context at all, honestly. But I would like to know who. So they're saying there is a 17-year-old girl who you had a relationship with. Is that true? And who are they? Who is this girl? What are they talking about, the New York Times?
The person doesn't exist. I have not had a relationship with a 17-year-old. That is totally false. The allegation, as I read it in the New York Times, is that I've traveled with some 17-year-old in some relationship. That is false, and records will bear that out to be false.
How long has this investigation been going on? Do you know?
I don't know.
When were you first informed of it?
Again, I really saw this as a deeply troubling challenge for my family on March 16th, when people were, talking about a minor and that there were pictures of me with child prostitutes. That's obviously false. There will be no such pictures because no such thing happened. But really on March 16th was when this got going from the extortion standpoint.
So what happens next? I mean, you can say there is this investigation, I guess a criminal investigation. I'm not quite sure where the sex trafficking part comes in. I don't, again, for the fifth time, I don't really understand the story very well.
See, and here's the thing, like Tucker Carlson is trying to get to the bottom of this, but the only information as far as our public eye can assess is that New York Times article, it mentioned something about Greenberg, and that Matt Gaetz had a allyship, or he was an ally with Greenberg, who was indicted for sex trafficking. So I think, and this is just my opinion, I think that is the whole, meat and potatoes of the New York Times article. They're trying to associate really hard. They're really trying to associate Matt Gaetz to that Greenberg guy. And, just because he was an ally at one point, and he endorsed Matt Gaetz at one point, and that they're trying to just like guilt by association this situation for Matt Gaetz. I think that's the case. And, if somebody is saying, okay, show me the proof and release the tapes, I think that they should release the tapes. Like, let's get a little bit more things to assess in the public eye. I mean, what's the point with not releasing it? The fact that the DOJ won't reply for comment is very telling as well. And we've already seen in recent months how swampy they are,
But where does it go from here? I mean, you've made an allegation against someone by name on the air and accused him of trying to extort millions of dollars from your family. What happens tomorrow?
Well, what was supposed to happen was the transfer of this money that would have implicated the former colleague of these current DOJ officials. But that's obviously not going to happen tomorrow because the New York Times story was leaked in order to quell that investigative effort. So here's what needs to happen next. The FBI and the Department of Justice must release the tapes that are in their possession that were done at their direction. Those tapes will show that I am innocent and that the whole concept of sex charges against me was really just a way to try to bleed my family out of money and probably smear my name because I am a well-known, outspoken conservative, and I guess that's out of style in a lot of parts of the country right now.
Matt Gaetz, I appreciate your coming on tonight.
Okay, and so this is what I will say. So I'm just going to wrap up by saying this. I really find it interesting timing that all of this is like unraveled overnight. And just the other day, Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, is very outspoken against the 𝐜𝐞𝐥𝐸 passports, the 𝐜𝐞𝐥𝐩 passports, and how the governors work with state representation. That's something that I am not 100. I'm not an expert in that, but I can only assume that the common denominator with Florida is, it's something to look at. It is something to look at, but I find it astonishing that the Hunter Biden investigation, that there are absolutely no leaks, that there's nothing, leaked by the Department of Justice or any sources, anonymous sources, 3 people sources, but they can leak this that has really no substantial claims. It has no substantial evidence, no substantial leverage to anything. It's just, it looks to be another conspiracy theory. It looks to be another Russia hoax, a nothing burger. Should there be more information, then they should absolutely include that. And look, according to the mainstream eye, the New York Times would have a lot of favor with that. Should they have that information? It's the same thing with the whole Donald Trump sex trafficking allegations. You would think that because the mainstream media is already against him, stacked up against him, if they had that evidence, why wouldn't they be shouting about that every single day, 24/7 for the past 4 years? You see what I mean? Like, the media is already biased. You already have the favorability of the mainstream eye. So why not present your leverage? Why not present more evidence if this is true? That's what I have to say about this. This is just my assessment and my opinion. I just think that, our justice system is it can work in a lot of times, but a lot more times it doesn't. A lot more times it's more corrupt, and the media is such a criminal, an accomplice in this sort of crime, and just accusing people and stating these baseless claims and going along with these schemes. It's rather disgusting. So this is what I have to say about it. Just present more evidence then. New York Times, DOJ, present more evidence to substantiate your claims against Matt Gaetz. Release the tapes too, release the tapes. I just think that all of this, the way the placement of the article, the wording, all of that is just funny to me. So anyway, with that being said, that is my opinion on everything. Those are my assessments. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. If it's in your heart to support the channel and keep me going, you can go to natlydenise.com/donate, or there are easy links in the description below, not the comments. But I will be looking out for your comments and your observations on this. So thank you guys so much for your love. I will see you in the next episode, video, whatever. Bye.